Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our special interest group webinar specialized in Power Platform. As usual, today's edition will be led by Chris Parks, and this time we will also have the pleasure of having with us Joe from Solgari and Gavin from Strategy 365. As you know, you can deposit your questions in the box at the top right of the screen, and when possible, they will be answered. So, Chris, it's all yours.
Thanks, Ruben. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We've finally managed to get these back up and running. Hopefully now, the last Friday of every month is the time frame that we will work to. We've switched to the Teams Live format, which is a real positive from a presentation point of view, but also a little bit of a negative from a presenter perspective, because we can't see the names of the attendees. We know who's registered, we don't know who's on. If you want to say hello in the chat window, I'd be delighted to hear from you. In the Q&A window, I'd be delighted to hear from you, to know who you are and where you're from. These sessions have been running for a few years up until recently, so it's great to kind of restart them. They are what you want them to be, and this is that the agenda is very flexible. It's a special interest group. We appreciate that as Companion we have a real breadth of partners in there, but the majority come from the Business Central background, and that Dynamics 365 and Power Platform is new to a lot of those partners. So we will try to keep the balance primarily on new items when it comes to Power Platform and D365, but we'll also try and keep a Business Central slant on there as well for those types of partners. So again, if they're in the chat or in the Q&A, if you can give us some indication of the background, who you are, where you're from, which country, and also your primary experiences, then I'd really appreciate that, because it will help me position this moving forward, and also today to more of you that are on the call. So we are going to press ahead with the agenda. There are a few things that we're going to talk about and we're going to cover today. There's a couple of new articles of note that I found recently, 2 IDC reports around field service management and customer data platform. Just point you to those from a reference perspective. Ideal if you are in a sales scenario. Obviously, Microsoft there performed very well in those reports. I also found notification of the Power Apps API preview, so I thought I would put some redirection into that. One of the hot topics that we are all fortunate now to have as part of what we can use is granular delegated admin privileges. I'm really pleased that Gavin Nixon from Strategy 365 will be joining me later to talk about GDAP, what that means, what the impact is, how far Microsoft have gone, have they gone far enough, what the potential related challenges, so not just what we already know, but also kind of highlighting what we don't know about GDAP and how that will work and the impact that it will have. Then we'll have Joe Lebert on, one of the Companion ISVs. Joe's the VP of Sales and Partnerships for EMEA from Solgari. Solgari offer an all-channel communication solution, and we'll keep this kind of informal. We're not going to just get Solgari to present at you. We're going to have a chat with Joe just so you can learn a little bit more about the solution and also put that into perspective with the Microsoft recent acquisition of Nuance, kind of a large US company. Towards the end of the session, I'm going to cover off some of the services around how you could get started with Companion. That's much more relevant to the partners from the Business Central side. The services there are all provided by the kind of CRM partners that customer engagement, take your pick, Dynamics 365 sales service partners that we have in our network. I would encourage you to actually connect with your local partners as much as possible, but we do have some kind of getting started with Companion services. If you want to start to get skilled yourself, you want to learn more, then we'll cover those off and what they are towards the end of the session. So to begin with, if I take a quick look in the chat window or the Q&A, still hello, Tres Trier, Guy. Hi, Doug from Kick ICT. 27 years now, the experience and no learning the Power Platform, we've met Doug. So thanks, folks. If you want to still pop a few things in there, I would love to know who else is on the call. Thanks to both Guy and Doug for putting that in to start with. So the first IDC management report. So it's an IDC MarketScape vendor analysis model, to be precise, and it's for field service management. And for those who don't know what field service is, traditionally, if you think about any installation or repair, any maintenance work that's performed by employees or contractors, say at a customer site, you know, whether that's somebody's home, whether it's an office location where there's equipment or a system that needs attention. For me, it's the traditional kind of person in a van who turns up to a premises to fix something. There are different use case scenarios, of course, rather than just that, but that's the traditional kind of definition of field service and field service management. There's lots of things to factor in here in the background if you're going to deliver effective field service. So the more resources that a company has in the field, the more difficult it is for them to schedule and optimize sites visits and engineers. And obviously the primary factor for driving great customer service outcomes is increased customer loyalty, particularly with the pandemic. A lot of people have kind of been based more remotely, and there's been a lot more challenges about kind of delivering these service visits, and customer loyalty is now becoming very, very tied to brands who offer customer service, great customer service that is, rather than poor customer service. So this IDC MarketScape vendor analysis, it's one of the products that Microsoft now has out of the box capabilities in. It was an acquirement going back probably 7-8 years, but field service has been a core part of kind of the Microsoft product set for that time now. It addresses all of the things that I've stated previously around resource scheduling and optimization. There's other things in there such as self-service scheduling, real-time status reports. But if you're positioning field service to your customers, or you're thinking about it, or if you're actually delivering field service yourselves in a technology support kind of way, this short summary document is well worth a read. It's also a really valuable piece of collateral if you're involved in sales cycle with customers, to say that you're in safe hands with Microsoft. You kind of already probably think that, but here's some extra evidence. The size of the circles on the vendor diagram there is the kind of the size of the market share as well. So whenever I see Microsoft position top right in these, whether it's Gartner, whether it's IDC, whether it's Forrester, always try and kind of highlight them, because I think you can always use these as an effective sales tool. So that was the first one that I found. That was earlier this year. The one that I next found interesting, it was the exact same MarketScape vendor analysis model, and Microsoft again in the leaders quadrant. Obviously, size of market share here isn't so big. This was around customer data platform, and when I look at what kind of customer data platform is, it's about creating a single view of customer data. So if you want to enable an organization to make data-driven decisions based on that one single version of the truth, whether that be fabled or not, about their customers across and throughout their organization, then that's what customer data platform is all about. In Microsoft terms, specifically, it's around customer insights and customer voice. That's what they term as their customer data platform kind of product set for the solution. Obviously, then it's about using that one data platform to enable all the multiple touch points for customers to consume, to self-serve, whether that's via a website, if it's via a customer portal, or some other engagement channel, particularly with kind of customer voice where you can do surveys. So for me, that centralized data set, though, it's very, very relevant to Dataverse, and where Microsoft store all of their data centrally. In theory, all of their account data, all of their customer data. Obviously, there will be all the other multiple sources that customer insights can leverage as a solution. But I do genuinely think of this as the evolution of what was the customer relationship management platform, or CRM, because it's about having the centralized view of accounts, contacts in one place, and then using that to service every other area. Obviously, Microsoft have got customer insights that sit on the top of that, as I kind of said before, but for me, that's customer data platform. So to enable that kind of orchestration and customer journeys and the marketing side, you've got to have that core customer data platform. I think the market share there is because it's related purely to customer insights. But again, the report goes into lots of detail there about what the capabilities are of customer insights, the reporting capabilities, the usage scenarios. So it's a longer read than the field service management one, but it's also well worth a read if you want to understand kind of the structure and more of the things that are available there. So next up, this is something that I thought was fascinating. It's kind of like a month old now, but we've had obviously the Easter holidays in the UK and other types of holidays across across Europe, different breaks, and this slipped under the radar for me up until recently. I know Lane Swenker has been on the product team at Microsoft working on this for years, so he's kind of the senior product manager. I was having conversations with him kind of 2 years ago about what the thinking was here and you know what was going to get to market. This is the first announcement they've made around the Microsoft Power Platform API. It is still in preview, but myself coming from a long time ago from a developer background, obviously once you start exposing capabilities through the API, the ability to do things programmatically and therefore then at scale becomes much more, it's much more of a realistic possibility. We know we've got kind of the PowerShell command line interface, and we've got kind of Power Platform tools for Visual Studio Code. That finally went kind of full release as well. I'll talk a little bit more about them next month. But the Power Platform API for me is obviously it gives you the ability to start to think about how to dev and how to scale those common functions and those common things that you would do. And you can see that there's a lot of stuff listed there on that slide labeled as future, environment, portals, governance. There is things in there right now though around licensing and billing policies, tenant apps, environment apps, installation and monitoring that are in there as part of application management. It's a RESTful web API. So you know, you've got the standard HTTP scenarios that you can put in there: get, post, patch, put and delete. And there's a couple of tutorials on there. There's one single, it's designed as one single endpoint for the apps now when it comes to app management, api.powerplatform.com. Obviously you have to register your application against the API, but there's two really good tutorials in there when I had a look. One was around creating a daily capacity report, and the other was about installing an app to a target environment, and they were both written in conjunction with Azure Logic Apps when I looked into this. So the daily capacity report I thought was kind of compelling because obviously you're looking at storage, you're looking at storage costs when you're running Power Platform, and you're also looking at that from a Dynamics 365 perspective, and it's the same underlying engine. So daily capacity growth, you can do that daily, monthly, weekly. You could store that in a database. You could email a report out to somebody who is responsible for monitoring, maintaining that, for example, and then also installing an app to a target environment. That one's a heck of a lot more comprehensive than the daily capacity report, but all the steps are documented. So when it comes to automation, and I think of the Companion Cloud Partner Panel in this instance, obviously, and it's one of the capabilities that we kind of provide there. Finally, Microsoft have started exposing the new APIs for Power Platform, not the old APIs that things are being worked on. And so I'll keep you up to date with what we can do there. I'd really be interested if you looked into any of those two scenarios, or you thought there were additional scenarios that could be enabled using the Power Platform API. I'd be really interested in having a conversation with you about those things, just to kind of understand potentially what we could do as Companion to maybe put kind of user interface on top of this as we move forward, to make everybody's lives easier and to centralize things through Cloud Partner Panel. So that was another afternoon. Stu from DC, hello to you. DC being Dynamics consultants, of course. So I think I've got 22 attendees and 3 people have told me who they are. You can do better than that, folks. Don't be scared. Please type in there. Because next up, I want to actually invite a guest presenter to have a little bit of a chat with me today. And providing my slide will move forward. We're going to move on to granular delegated admin privileges, or GDAP, GDAP. And with that, Hoping Ruben can also make live for me Gavin Nixon from Strategy 365. Ruben, if you can just allow Gav to be seen as well, and that'd be great. There you are. Gav, you are live. And Ruben, I'm assuming me and Gav are both live, but we can just see Gav.
Exactly. Yeah, you can see just one face.
Fantastic. So you get the spotlight, Gav. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
And I guess one of the things that we didn't plan was a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Strategy 365. Just a brief intro, if you can.
Sure. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yep, loud and clear.
Thank you. So Gavin Nixon, Managing Director of Strategy 365. We are a gold partner with 100% focus on kind of the CRM elements of Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform.
Thanks, Gav. And I know you come, basically, I know you're the CEO, the MD, or, you know, I can't remember the exact description you give yourself, but it's your business, your company. I know you come from a consulting background. And one of the reasons why I asked you if you could talk specifically about this today is because I know you know this in kind of quite some detail, and you've felt some pain in the past. So basically, for the uninitiated, what exactly is GDAP?
Okay, thank you. So GDAP stands for Granular Delegated Admin Privileges, which basically means exactly what it says on the tin. You now get delegated admin rights for granular, i.e. only specific parts of a customer's tenant in the Microsoft cloud, essentially.
Right. Okay, so that makes sense. Granular specific parts of a customer's tenant in the cloud, but why is that important?
Well, the original way of partners managing tenants was via the old style delegated admin option, and there were a few additional benefits to that option, not least that it gave recognition for that customer with Microsoft for working with them.
Okay, so why is there a need then to change that? What was wrong with the old way from a delegated admin point of view?
Well, to start with, when it comes to the old delegated admin, you get full access. That's global admin level access, and that's almost always a problem because most customers don't want the partner to have that level of access.
Okay, so access to everything in every admin center. I've come across that as well and seen issues where MSPs, if you've got an MSP in there who's managing the infrastructure, they're often very strict on control of their customers' infrastructure. And therefore, when you ask for delegated admin, they think you're trying to take over what they're doing, and it can cause conflict and so on and so forth.
Absolutely correct. So, Microsoft finally decided that the old delegated admin that gave global admin option just isn't good enough anymore. And the new GDAP option gives access to only what's required. There are other benefits too, actually, because you could, for example, you can time box it for up to a maximum of 2 years, which obviously helps customers manage their compliance requirements too.
Okay, it kind of makes sense. So alongside that, then, how does it relate specifically to Dynamics 365 apps and the Power Platform?
Okay, so basically you can use it now to request access to just the Power Platform Admin Center, which is obviously where all of the environments are set up and configured, etc. But without necessarily asking for access for the other admin centers, so like Exchange Admin Center, Teams Admin Center, etc.
And the things that you don't actually need access to, so you can specifically get access to
Exactly.
Power Platform Admin Center and nothing else. It sounds really useful then.
Yeah. It is, but it would have been nice if Microsoft had gone a little bit further with it.
And when you say a little bit further with it, what exactly do you mean there?
Okay, so when Microsoft first announced it on their Microsoft Docs documentation page, they mentioned that access to the Power Platform Admin Center was there, but they mentioned that access to the Power Platform Maker portal was going to be coming in a future release. And sadly, I've recently noticed that on that docs page, they've removed that. So it looks like that we might not be getting access to GDAP to the Power Platform Maker portal, which is a little bit frustrating.
So you've got it to the admin center, but not to the Maker portal. What I will say, these slides that I'm kind of displaying now are pinched from somebody else yesterday. You also got GDAP for Business Central, which is kind of listed on the slide there as well. So it's not just Power Apps, not just Power Platform. But if you haven't got access to them, so if you've got access to the Power Platform Admin Center, great. But if you haven't got access to the maker portal. Why would that be an issue?
Yeah, so the old delegated admin, when accessing Dynamics and Power Apps, they could build the apps. But as Microsoft have now switched to the Power Platform Maker portal, the old delegated admin doesn't get access to that. So we thought it was nice that the GDAP will now give access to the new Maker portal, but as that's now been removed, it seems like us as partners will still need to have potentially a fully licensed user account to be able to do that, which obviously comes at a cost to the customer.
Okay, so the customer still has to pay for an additional license there for us as partners and you as a partner to basically create apps within their environment that you use as a login.
Absolutely. But look, let's hope that this does get reintroduced back into it in the future.
Let's hope so. I did, obviously, being as diligent as you are, you took a screenshot of when it was on there. So you've got the kind of evidence that Microsoft put it up there and then it disappeared. And I appreciated you sharing that with me because I'd missed the change. So when it comes to setting up this granular delegated admin privileges, because as partners, we've all got to kind of look to do this. How do you go about that? Have you got any insights you can share on kind of where you start to do that?
Yeah, it's really straightforward, to be honest, Chris. So within the partner center, you just go to customers, then you click on administer. It gives you a nice little form to fill in. That's where you can go and choose all of the different roles that you want. And this is also where you choose the duration of how long you want that access to last. I think I mentioned it before, you can have a maximum of 730 days, which is 2 years. And the beauty about this is that it actually reminds you when that access is coming to an end. I think if I remember rightly, it reminds you at 30 days and then at 7 days, so that you're not going to forget to go and renew that access for those customers.
Okay, and do you know that whether or not that fires an invite off to the customer on your behalf? Is that
sorry? Yes, it does. That's exactly how it works. So it goes and fires off that invite, and they obviously approve or deny as applicable. Yeah.
So it sounds really seamless. It sounds well designed. It looks like Microsoft have put some good thought into this. Is there anything else you think that people would need to be aware of when it comes to kind of setting up this GDAP, or any other implications?
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing that we're still a bit unsure of at the moment is whether or not this is going to count towards recognition with Microsoft. I seem to remember reading something that suggests it doesn't. And the problem with that is that the old delegated admin access does go towards recognition for working with that customer. So the problem with that is that we might still be inclined to use the old one until we know for sure whether this does get recognition or not.
Okay, so they've brought in a new way of doing it. It might not give you recognition of working with the customer, and therefore you might still have to use the old way to make sure that you are associated with that customer for all your partner benefits and everything else.
Absolutely, but ultimately, this is not just about getting the recognition. This is being able to, work properly with your customers without requiring full global admin access, and that's got to be more important. So, yeah.
Excellent, Gav. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through that. If there's any Q&A that come in, I'll just have a quick check before we bring in next presenter. We have another Johnny from DC. Sam's on from Strategy 365 as well. He says he doesn't want to steal your thunder. He didn't want to say he was here, but no questions on the go. So
okay,
thanks,
thank you,
Gav. Really appreciate that. And
I don't know if Chris, your video's frozen for me. I don't know if it's frozen for anyone else. Can anyone just pop in the chat if it's frozen?
Yeah, I think so. Let's leave him a couple seconds and let's see if everything comes back to normality.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether it was my end or not.
Let's see. He might. I think he's just come back.
Yes. Have I come back? Have I returned?
You've just come back, Chris.
Phew. Gav, I'm really sorry to leave you hanging like that. I was just saying have a great weekend, and just before we bring on the next presenter, thank you very much. So what I've found out, my fibre broadband provider, fibre to the premises, luckily where I live in North Staffordshire, have done some improvements to the local to the network recently. It's a couple of weeks back, and what I've found is that Download, I can hear everything that's going on. Upload, I tend to freeze. It takes about 7 to 8 seconds, I think, generally for it to come back online. So apologies everybody there for freezing. Apologies to Gav for leaving him hanging. And thanks Ruben and Gav for kind of filling the dead air time there. I'm now hoping, Ruben, that we have another presenter able to join us.
I'm very sorry, but it wasn't possible to get him in the meeting. I don't know what happened, but in the the webinar settings, Joe wasn't allowed to get into the meeting. So I'm sorry to hear it, and I will try my best to find what happened as soon as the session finishes.
Okay, so a little bit gutted because we got Joe Lebert from Solgari lined up to talk contact center. What we'll do is we will see if we can get Joe on next month then. Appreciate that. I guess this is the first time we're using Teams Live, Ruben. So it is what it is. It's one of those things. I guess I do have a little bit of backup kind of content, but it's more targeted around Business Central integration with the Power Platform. Before I talk about the services, so I guess I could share that briefly. Really, it's around kind of going to market with Power Platform if you come from the Business Central side, and considering how you can do that and what's relevant. So I guess we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then I'll talk about some of the services that we can provide. When I talk to partners that come from the Business Central side of the fence, traditionally they don't come from the CRM or the Power Platform side. They don't have the long history. They don't understand all of the kind of iterations that have happened there. And when I talk to them about Power Platform, then because it's such a, I mean, it is just that, it's a platform, and there is so much in there. You know, where do you start? Do you start with Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, Power BI, Power Apps? A lot of the sort of the BC partners in the community understand Power BI, and I think when it comes to data, to reporting, and all the things there that you can do, there's an obvious reason why Power BI is of appeal to them, because if you're going to present financial information back to an organization, key performance indicators, metrics from various data sources, that tends to be the kind of landing point. But for me, it's also kind of the odd one out when it comes to kind of Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, and the four things sort of above the line on the slide there, is because it's kind of independent and standalone. I know you could say that about Power Virtual Agents as well, but that does utilize Power Automate for some of the flows and the logic and the things behind the scenes. So for me, really, when it comes down to where should a kind of partner start, the things that you should perhaps be thinking about are Power Automate, Power Apps, but also very specifically Dataverse. And the other thing it's probably worth mentioning about Power Virtual Agents, and the technology is real if you're going to create chatbots to use those scenarios, but you also need to license kind of costs for AI Builder credits. It starts at kind of $500 equivalent a month, and then you've got to add on the Power Apps, Power Automate, Dynamics 365 licenses. I think Power Virtual Agent actually is $1,000 per month minimum. So the AI Builder credits down the bottom of 500. Some of those are now included in the Dynamics 365 licenses. The Power Virtual Agents are $1,000 per month minimum. So just bear that in mind before you set up a try and think we could really use that. If you want to use them together, there's quite a big charge there. So I would normally say to partners, focus on Power Apps, focus on Power Automate, and focus on Dataverse. Dataverse in particular, and I talked about the common data platform earlier and the evolution of where that was. It always makes me chuckle because obviously Microsoft had something known as Project Green way back in the day when they acquired Navision, Exacta, Great Plains, Solomon Software, other vendors. But the underlying data platform for Microsoft Business Application Strategy moving forward is Dataverse. That's basically how it is and where it is. And we know still that there is only really one genuine odd one out in that kind of data platform strategy, and it's Business Central. There's no nothing on the roadmap from Microsoft to basically re-platform Business Central on the Dataverse, but they are constantly writing more and more integration scenarios and capabilities to make sure that you can use the two things seamlessly together. I'll come on to more of that in a minute. I think Power Apps is always of interest because you've got both model-driven apps and Canvas apps. Canvas apps allow you to start with a blank canvas. Power Apps and the model-driven apps in particular allow you to build on top of the Dataverse. You start with the data model. And therefore, if you synchronize the data from Business Central to Dataverse, then you can leverage that you can leverage the Power Apps client, be that through the browser, mobile device, anywhere you need to work both online and offline. So for me, when it comes to kind of where should we start, as if you're a Business Central partner, probably Dataverse and integration scenarios. Secondary after that, Power Apps, and in particular model-driven apps. Because those model-driven apps are the history and background of Dynamics 365. Dynamics 365 sales, customer service are in essence model-driven apps. From there, you've got the Power Automate, you've got the processes, you've got the workflow, you've got kind of triggers that you can use through events that happen within Dataverse. There are now some triggers built in directly to Business Central and connectors there that are kind of finally in market. And then the last piece, I think, is around Power BI, around kind of analysing and acting on information and how that's presented. You can sit Power BI on multiple data sources. Anybody who tries to put Power BI in Business Central will know that it's very difficult to put the same things into multiple companies again and again and again. I've seen there's been an advancement recently about creating offline copies of the Business Central data, which mean that you're not impacting the production service while you're generating the reports. So there's things afoot there as well to kind of make that more seamlessly in Business Central, but you can point it to other data sets. You can bring and merge those data sets together. So I think from a Dataverse perspective, if I just advance this, and this is relevant to CRM, historically CRM partners, as well as kind of the Business Central partners. When it comes to integrating with Business Central or connecting to Business Central, and how you would go about doing that, and perhaps enabling data from the finance system or kind of, the Business Central back end out through the unified interface that is now kind of Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So option one is data synchronization. And this is the primary option, I guess, because it's driven via the Business Central UI. So there's some benefits here. You've got native table mapping. It's nice and easy. But there's also a few disadvantages too. It doesn't handle conflict resolution particularly well. It works on a schedule. It's not done ad hoc live. So then it becomes, okay, if that's not the right option and you do need ad hoc live, or you want to have more tables available, what can you look to use? At which point you've got to consider virtual tables, which you can set up and configure, and that'll give you the real-time integration. It'll give you one master. You won't have any conflicts to handle because basically you're just rendering the information from Business Central through the Power Platform interface. And you've got the advantage there of more tables being available, as I said, but you can't trigger Power Automate flows from that. You also, because the data isn't synchronized into Dataverse, the data isn't available through portals. So the account and the contact information, if you're not choosing to synchronize that, then you can't think about that customer data platform and the one version and use that through Power Apps portals. If you look at the others, data flows or Power Automate or Azure Logic Apps or connector-based capabilities, again, they've all got different kind of benefits. With the data flows, you've got one master and you've got native table mapping. It's config only. You don't need code, but it's unidirectional only. And again, it's not very performant and it works on a schedule. The Power Automate and Azure Logic Apps, you can do things that are really powerful there. You could make it bi-directional. You could write it low code, no development, but you would need to write all the logic yourself. And with that comes the overheads of maintaining that logic as well. Connector based, you can connect directly, and it's great because you can build low code apps for mobiles, but there are some limitations of the out of box connectors. You can create your own connectors, of course, but you're limited again to the API supported Business Central tables, fields, and if you're going to go down the Canvas app route, connector based option brings lots of complexity there. So the other thing to consider is where you're storing the data. Obviously, you pay for the privilege of storage in Microsoft Cloud, and Microsoft would allow you to pay for the privilege of storing it twice if you synchronize the data in both places to keep it in sync. So that's also worth bearing in mind. But just kind of discussing that, I want to talk about two very specific services that we have from Companion, and what they're designed to help kind of partners who haven't got started yet with getting started. And every time I talk to a Business Central partner, they'll say something like, "Oh, we've tried to dabble with CRM before, but we didn't get very far." Chances are they've been burnt. They weren't, there's been somebody who's had a play, a fiddle, an investigation, and they haven't quite worked out what it is. And a lot of the things here were around data integration, but there's also a lot of things that technically you need to enable before you can even get to kind of the start line. So there's things like business units, there's things like security roles and implementation there that you need to do. And all of those things, typically most of the CRM providers in the UK and most of the Companion partners, and very, very happy to put any of you in touch with a partner who would be able to do you some kind of quick start, fast start service to help with that. If you would rather talk directly to Companion, we're not going to come in and start doing your CRM projects. But if you want to kind of be able to basically get over the initial environment installation, configuration, setup, and you want to kind of learn how to skill up and to do that, we will do that with you, and we can help you do that through kind of a training service that we've termed CRM in a box. 20 hours can help you get started with your internal use rights. It can help you get kind of an initial configuration set up. It will be it's basically 20 hours for the infrastructure, and then 20 hours if you want to learn more about sales or you want to learn more about customer service, workflows, queues, and it's kind of, we will handhold you and walk you through that process as your guided resource, just to get you to the skill set point of view where you should then be able to do this for your customers. Obviously, you're not then going to be able to run with the CRM project, so I still would encourage you to kind of partner up with somebody there. And that's one of the services that we have available. The other thing that is listed on this slide that's probably worth a quick mention is the migration. So I was under the impression that the majority of customers were running already in the cloud. CRM has been a SaaS first motion since 2011. It turns out, talking to Microsoft, that there is still a lot of customers in the UK, particularly running on premises CRM environments, more than we ever would have expected. So we do have something that's around a migration assessment that will tell you all the things that will and won't work in the cloud when it comes to working with customers. So this is relevant across the board here, is if you do start talking to a customer and they have on premises and they're not already cloud enabled, we can help define the project scope, and we can run some of our automated tooling in the customer's environment, produce a report that will give a reasonable indication of the number of licenses and the type of things that they would need to enable to run in the cloud, what won't work, what functionality they've custom dev that's been superseded, and so on and so forth. The second piece, again, relevant primarily to the BC community here, is around something called app in a week and app in a day. Microsoft have app in a day, and everybody knows that, but it is mostly just a technology kind of breadth overview. It doesn't put it in the context of what you need as partners and what that might enable. So I talked a lot there about integrating Business Central with Dataverse. And that's probably the first thing that you're going to do. So this service is designed to help partners get started with Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. It's designed to help with create repeatable and packageable IP. So we'll talk about best practices, and we'll talk about kind of being able to create app publishing inside of the environment, working in the context of a solution in Power Apps, which is massively important, all of those things. But at the start, we'll also run a separate workshop to discuss the context of what you are looking to do. And it's designed so that as we help you understand all of the things that are in Power Platform and all of the capabilities in each of those component parts, because there is a lot, that whilst you're creating those, whilst we're teaching you those things, you're also then going off and creating. This isn't a Monday 9 o'clock till Friday 5:30 engagement. It's not app in a week. It's a series of hours, 40 consultancy hours. designed to be spread over kind of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, up to 3 months, in order to help you get started on your Power Platform journey, and build your first model-driven app, or your first solution that uses and utilizes Power Automate, that integrates with Business Central, be that on premises or in the cloud, and kind of takes it on from there. So those are the two services that I wanted to mention. I think if we just do a quick recap of the agenda today. Again, apologies that we couldn't get Joe on from Solgari. That will happen next month now. I would hope we've covered the IDC reports, we've covered the Power Apps and the API, and a great session from Gavin Nixon about GDAP and granular delegated admin privileges, and just a quick overview there of the services. So with that, I want to say thanks very much for your time this month. We're back on schedule now, final Friday of every month moving forwards. Thanks, and I look forward to have a great weekend, everyone. Look forward to seeing and speaking to you all soon. If there's any follow-ups, I would be very happy to speak to you directly, and I'll just do a quick check on the Q&A. Do a C virtual table superseding data sync between BC and Dataverse? No, I think the two things are completely independent of each other, mainly because of whether the data lives in Dataverse or doesn't live in Dataverse, and it's very much horses for courses. Good question. Thank you, Guy, for that one. But other than that, I think we're all done. That was the only question that was in there. Take care, have a great weekend, and I will see you all soon.